Welcome to the Moviegoers Society Podcast, brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind that maybe ran out of his AAA subscription and is stranded off the side of the highway.
That was a good setup for that image. I like that. It caught me off guard. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. Probably not the best place to podcast from, but in the middle of a civil war. But I'm here.
Yeah, it is a graveyard of vehicles out there. It's pretty scary, I will say that. So kind of exciting. We'll be talking about this film, Civil War. But yeah, in this podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. We're now on episode 38, jumping into an SUV and heading to the White House with Civil War. As you can see behind Drew, quite the journey that is. But before we get to all of that, we just want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on every single social media platform you can think of at Shantaj and in Nerdtropolis at Nerdtropolis. And then don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, where can they find you when you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all different social media platforms. And of course, every week here, we've, maybe more than once a week, depending on our consistency. I feel like we're just, cranking them out.
We're having tons of fun doing this, but also don't forget to catch up on the past episodes of the Moviegoers Society. Like I said, episode 38, tons to catch up on. New or old listeners, we appreciate all y'all for tuning in right now. Tune into my podcast, Real Insights, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel. Been dropping things maybe a couple of times a week. I got a lot more coming. Drew, I shared with you the other day, I will be heading first thing in the morning to LA to do the Abigail press junket. So that is super exciting. I got 3 interviews lined up and they're all paired. And I'm gonna just tell everyone out there, I won't say who they're with. There's some pretty good names there, I will say. Just go look at the Abigail, IMDb. And I got 3 interviews and they're all paired with actors and the director. So you can kind of figure out who the directors are, but I'll keep mum on who the actors are. But stay tuned. Some really good stuff coming. Also, I'm speaking to the cast of the new Spiderwick Chronicles show that's dropping on Roku. So a lot of exciting stuff happening. And Drew, you've been busy too. You just watched a brand new movie outside of Civil War, and you got your review up for Sting. So like, how was that? That's something some people have said it's pretty interesting and a pretty good watch.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I've seen kind of reviews that are kind of all over the place. Like some are really positive, some really negative. At the end of the day, it's a creature feature with a big spider. I mean, I guess it's an alien spider. It literally is like a pod that flies through a window, and then this girl takes this spider and keeps it as a pet, and then it grows very quickly and to the point where it starts devouring people. So, you're kind of typical horror flick. And I thought it at least had some fun moments. Some good spider kills. Just takes a long time to get there. This movie is only an hour and a half long with credits, and it still is like the last act is where it really starts to get fun. You have to kind of get through the family dynamics and the story that it's trying to set up, which is all fine. But really you're just kind of waiting for the big spider and the kills. And once it does start doing that, it's fun. There's some practical effects that are really good, but this movie really plays out pretty much exactly as you would expect it to. There's not really anything that's going to shock or surprise you or something new and innovative you've never seen before. It's just a horror movie about a big spider. But for what it is, it's totally fine. It's out in select theaters now, so you can catch it in theaters. And I thought it was passable if this is right up your alley. Yeah, not for arachnophobes, I'd say though. Not for those that are scared of spiders.
Yeah, I might be iffy on that, but you can read Drew's full review on nerdtropolis.com. We're going to be talking at Civil War right now, which you can find my full review on nerdtropolis.com as well. And I got to jump onto Great Day Houston to talk about Civil War, which was great. I also got to jump on the KRB after show. We talked a little bit of everything, but Civil War was also mentioned. And so I'm super excited to be talking to Drew about this. We got to catch this in theaters. First off, before we really dive into it, I just want to see where you watched it. I watched it in IMAX. What format did you watch it in?
Okay, so this is actually a weird one. It's interesting that you chose today to ask this question. I saw this in Onyx, which is probably something that you haven't heard of. I was doing research on it recently. So Onyx is a very large Samsung LED screen. So there's no projector for this. It's a giant LED screen. There's only a few of these in the country, one of which happens to be here in Richmond, Texas at a Star Cinema. So I had just recently learned that it was there. This large format was there. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go check this out. And it was pretty good. I mean, the colors like really popped. The blacks are really dark. So it really looked good, but it wasn't your typical large format. You know, it wasn't an IMAX. It's called Samsung Onyx. So do some research there. It's a format that I was unfamiliar with, and the only reason that we're not seeing them more frequently is that Onyx screens are apparently extremely expensive to install.
That's wild. I think I've heard about it, but I didn't know we had one in our city. So that's really interesting. So I guess that's another way to watch Civil War. This is a film that follows really war journalists and the press on a dangerous road trip to the White House. That's really what the plot is. I will say that people online that are trying to make, I don't like going down this alley, but I feel like I have to, making this movie so political because a lot of the descriptions are like there's Texas and California teaming up with to fight against America, and also Florida has succeeded as well with Texas and California, but they're on separate factions. But all of that is not even part of the film. It's brushed on quickly. It's not really important. It's really this crazy journey that all journalists that love documenting war go through. I mean, it's a universal story, I feel like, and they just made it a modern day dystopian story about a war going on in America, but it really follows these journalists. And that's really what's so intriguing about this film. Like I said, I watched this in IMAX and I thought that was one of the most best experiences I had for this film that I've ever had in the theater. I felt like I was there. The sound was just incredible. There's a lot of popping sounds too, and there's a lot of guns, explosions, and they're real guns, like realistic guns. Nothing's like futuristic or anything like that. It is all like your typical modern day weaponry. And you just feel like you're there with this IMAX setting. And this film does star Kirsten Dunst, our MJ, my MJ, I will say, from Spider-Man, and directed by Alex Garland, who has written a bunch of awesome stuff too. Just recently, he said he's working on 28, what is it, years later. So that's super exciting. But yeah, this is a blend of dystopian themes, a thrilling narrative. I thought, like, I didn't, with all the rumblings of political stuff, I'm like, this is awesome, this narrative. And I think audiences will really be surprised of what's in front of them from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things you touched on, and it's like you said, you maybe it's not the route that you want to go, going the political route, but like this movie has really kind of positioned itself that way, even with the marketing of it. So I think it's fair to touch on it. It's also worth noting that Civil War opened at South by Southwest, is where it had its premiere, which is a festival that's notorious for people coming out of movies being like, it's the best ever. So all the initial reviews are like super, super positive. So I had that and then the marketing in my mind when going into this.
And I'm with you too, to be honest. I thought it was overhyped going in, and I was like, oh, and everyone's making it as such a political. I'm like, this is a movie that maybe would turn me off. And I'll just leave it there. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, to your point, like that's in the marketing, but once you're actually in the midst of the film, like it's not really taking a strong side necessarily, or it doesn't get into the politics of why they're even really at war. Like there are some things that are alluded to, and like you said, the Texas and California partnering essentially against the US is what's happening, but pretty much the scenarios that they go through kind of on this road trip are really just a matter of who's shooting at me? Should I shoot at them? Like it's just kind of, it almost feels more like every man for themselves, or every man or woman for themselves. And that's it. So I was surprised at how little politically it was saying. I mean, there are definitely messages here, and there are things based on our current politics that are here, but the movie is not beating you over the head with like a stance, I think is what I came away from it thinking. I was surprised at that.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like an end of the world situation, and no one really knows who's friendly and who's not friendly. I thought this film was like a roller coaster of emotions, not knowing who's gonna be good to them or bad to them. A lot of heart pounding thrills. I really liked how Alex Garland really built up this film, and still early on offered a lot of grittiness. Fair warning to everyone: there's a lot of disturbing imagery. So if that's something that's going to affect you, yeah, it's probably one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen because it's so real. Nothing's really looking fake in this. Like I said, even the guns, everything is realistic, and so a lot of the imagery is reflects what would actually look, what would happen, and what it looks like. Right? It's some really jarring stuff happening when your country's in the middle of the war. So your heart will be pounding for many reasons, and that's one of them.
Well, not only that, but the main characters in this movie are all journalists, which is a big part of it. And Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney's characters in particular are photographers. So not only is there that gruesome imagery, but they're basically having to suppress their emotions and the human side of them to photograph these horrendous images, which I thought was very powerful. Alex Garland, I thought directed this masterfully. The whole thing looks great. Even if the imagery is horrifying, the movie looks great. It sounds great. I think that it's extremely well made. The performances are good. Kirsten Dunst is like very subdued, and it's a really strong performance, I thought. And I thought Kaylee Spaney was really good. And not to bring up previous wars between you and I, but I liked Priscilla, and she played Priscilla Presley in the Priscilla movie.
I didn't put that together. That's the funny thing. I didn't put that together. She's, I guess, a chameleon as well, and I didn't make that until you just mentioned it now. So
yeah, so she's a little bit more. Her character is very different in this than Priscilla. Priscilla was very muted, very quiet, and almost made, to me, her performance in this and seeing more from her as an actress retroactively makes her performance in Priscilla even better to me, which I know is probably like, again, differing from you, but I thought she was very good in this. Apparently it was while they were making this. Kirsten Dunst has been in Sophia Coppola films before, and they have a strong relationship. And apparently it was Kirsten Dunst that recommended Kaylee Spaney to Sophia Coppola for the Priscilla movie. So I thought that was a fun bit of trivia. But I thought her performance was really strong in this. She's a young actress who has a lot of promise, and I'm interested to see what she does next. And
which is next. Next is going to be Alien Romulus. She's going to be in the next Alien.
Oh, that's right.
Film.
Yeah, she's the lead in Alien Romulus, right? So yeah,
I think she's like the second.
Exciting.
Yeah, so it's got a really good cast, and yeah, so to have her in there leading the way, that'll be exciting. I know you'd be excited for that one too.
Oh, for sure. And then I thought Stephen McKinley Henderson was really, really good in this as well. And then Wagner Moura
while we're at that, hold on real quick. When we're on Stephen, his character, I have to mention, is a big part of the story. I feel like, I think without him and his character, this movie would not work, because his commentary, and he's really the veteran in the group, and he's really kind of teaching them a lesson as they go through this, for all of them, because Kirsten Dunst has to kind of show Kaylee's character the new way, because she's kind of like trying to be the same type of journalist or photographer. And so Steven's telling Kirsten Dunst's character, like, you should really kind of build her up and help her out. And his character, I have to just give him props on that. Like, his character in this, Sammy, really, really important. And without him, this movie would be really nothing.
I completely agree. And then the other male lead, maybe it's pronounced Vagner Moura. I'm probably mispronouncing
Wagner
it.
Moura, we'll just say that.
But I thought he was very good, and I've looked at his filmography, and there's movies that he's been in that I've seen him in, but I didn't really recognize him. So,
he is
but I thought he was very
Escobar
good in
Narcos. So,
see, I've never seen Narcos.
Oh, Drew, we're gonna have another conversation about this when we can. He is the Pablo Escobar in Narcos. All those memes you saw, like with Pablo, like with, I guess, the swings or whatever it is, that's him. Like, if you see those memes online of Pablo Escobar looking down and stuff like that. He's also the voice of the wolf. And
oh yeah, he's like top billed in that show. Okay, yeah, you're right. That's on me. I'm sorry.
And Puss in Boots, he's the voice of the wolf. So He has a lot
I
of
haven't
pretty
seen
good
the new
stuff.
Puss in Boots either, Sean.
Oh,
This is
Drew,
I'm
this is
sorry, I'm
going
letting you
downhill
down here.
quick, downhill quick. Those are two great series of the show. I'm teasing, but yeah, check those out whenever you can, Drew. But yeah, he's really great in this as well. Even with him too, there's not really much of a movie as well. I think everyone you play really important pieces in this film, and it's a small cast if you really think about it. Um, Everyone's gonna talk about Jesse Plemons in this, not giving anything away. That's Kirsten Dunst's husband. Apparently, he did this as a favor, but his scene is probably the most shocking scenes in the film.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's where it gets to, I guess, my criticisms of the movie is that which this isn't like big criticism necessarily, but I just thought that the third act of the movie, which is when they actually reach the destination of where they've been trying to get to through the course of the movie, there's some interesting moments in that, but ultimately I found that to be way less intriguing than the actual journey to get there. And there's some really fascinating moments along their journey of different towns they stop through, different scenarios they encounter. The one with Jesse Plemons, like you mentioned, is particularly harrowing and definitely one of the standout moments, probably if not the most memorable memorable moment of the whole movie. But there's some other ones, even at the beginning, near the beginning, they stop at a gas station, and there's some kind of I don't want to say horrifying events, but I
But
mean,
even in the very beginning too, the very beginning scenes, where she saves the character. I mean, it starts off strong. I get what you're saying towards the end, and I put this in my review. Toward the last act of the film reminded me of like live action Call of Duty. It's what I imagine a live action Call of Duty would be, and I think that would be really fun to see a Call of Duty movie from the lens of the war journal, like the war photographers and how they're in it and have someone with a camera and you kind of watching it that way. I think that would be a really cool way to watch a Call of Duty. And I think Alex Garland needs to do a Call of Duty film after that final act when they're in DC and it's like a war zone. It's part of some of the coolest stuff I've seen. But definitely the build up moments where it's kind of like, we talked about this maybe before between you and I about Garland wrote 28 Days Later, and I felt like this was a similar film because as the road trip aspect and running into things, and then some of the soundtrack, right? Some of the songs used were very important, and it just really reminded me of 28 Days Later. And I think it's a really similar film, which is actually not a bad thing. That's one of my favorite films of all time, and it's almost the same formula to some extent, and it works and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the imagery in DC of like the giant walls that are erected around the White House and things like that. Like there's some, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. It's just, it's kind of goes along with most of the imagery in this movie, but like it looked really good. It was really, really interesting. I think it's just the actual, by that moment, I was like, okay, like where are we going with this? Whereas the road trip aspect of it kind of left me more like, oh, anything could happen. I was really intrigued. Once they make it there, I'm like, okay, let's wrap this up. Is kind of how I felt, which not that this movie drags at all. I actually thought it was really tight. Like it flew by for me. So I really did enjoy it. I think I just I thought it was going to say more or be more divisive. Not that I necessarily want it to be a divisive movie, but I thought it was going to left me feeling like whoa. And instead, I just thought it was a really solid movie. I'll see anything Alex Garland does. I love all his movies, and I think that this is another positive entry. But yeah, I think maybe it was overhyped. Maybe I didn't have the right mindset, but I think I was expecting to be like totally shook by this movie, and I wasn't, even though there's some extremely strong imagery in it.
I think the overhypeness is what you wanted and didn't get. I didn't want the overhypeness, and it delivered what I kind of was hoping it would be, which is great. This film opened up with 25 million plus domestically only. It has not opened internationally. That's the biggest opening for A24. Really impressive, especially for a rated R film. A lot of the scenes are playing in my head, and it's just jarring. And watching an IMAX with the big booms and the sounds and the snipers, like all that stuff, I can hear it still in my head. That's how experiencing and watching this and experiencing an IMAX was for me. Very memorable. I was just in shock watching this. I was like, this is what's one of the best movie going experiences I've had, not in a long time. I've seen a lot of good films, but something that wasn't a major IP. Outside of major IP stuff and pop culture movies and superhero movies, I thought this was one of the best things I ever watched. And that's why I gave it that 5 out of 5 stars for me. It was just a wild experience and memorable. Gotta be probably my top 20 films of 2025 films of all time, to be honest.
Now that we've been vocalizing some thoughts here, I'm for sure going with a 4 out of 10 for my star rating.
4 out of 5. You don't want a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Oh my gosh. Yes. No, it is definitely a 4 out of 5. An 8 out of 10. Yes. So I really, really liked this. It wasn't a 10 out of 10 for me, but it was still, you know, a really positive experience. And you mentioned the box office. This movie is giving me faith in audiences here, that people, you know, will show up for a movie that's got interesting marketing and it's an original story, compared to, you know, there was a time where it felt like any superhero movie, regardless of quality, was going to go to the box office and make tons of money. And we saw earlier this year that audiences pretty much outright rejected Madam Web, which is appropriate. It's a bad movie. But you know, that movie only made $15 million on its opening weekend, and Civil War came out and made $10 million more than that. So I think that that's really interesting. Good for A24, which has also become a brand that I think people just want to support. Like A24 is a pretty cool brand, and they're putting out interesting movies. So yeah, they've just got a good reputation now.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see how well this did open weekend. I'm really curious to see how it goes the following weekend. But, you know, coming in second, Godzilla X Kong. And then right after that was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So people are still going to see those, you know, big blockbuster movies too. But it's nice to see there's kind of room for everybody. That makes the quality films also, like Civil War plays as a big movie when you watch it. I was actually surprised how good everything looks. I couldn't tell what was really fake and wasn't. I felt like everything was real. It was hard to kind of tell what was maybe CG or just added in post and stuff like that. And, you know, green screen. I don't know what they use. I kind of want to go research that now. But I'm excited to see what Alex Garland does next. I'm really stoked. He needs to give us that 28 years later. I've been waiting for that film for a very, very long time. And it's finally happening. But make sure you do like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, do what you can, support us. Our YouTube channel is getting close to 11,000 subscribers. You know, we get thousands and thousands of people that visit nerdtropolis.com all the time. Our Facebook page is close to 100,000 followers. I think we're at 525,000 views on our YouTube channel from the interviews I'm doing. Yeah, and our Moviegoers Society podcast. We're just trying to connect with all of y'all and just geek out, nerd out, do, you know, all this fun movie stuff with all of you. And we want to hear from you too. So hit us up on Letterboxd, X, anywhere you can find us, Instagram. But yeah, definitely we gotta get more active on Letterboxd. So I need to start watching more stuff outside of when I can make it at theaters, because I am watching stuff at home. I just forget to log them, but I need to be more active like Drew is. So just make sure you just subscribe to everything that we have. And once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on social media. Maybe soon we're going to start resuming Fresh Out the Podcast, where you can find me weekly. You can find me on Letterboxd. You can find me here on the Moviegoers Society, where I love talking to Sean about movies. Sean, how are you not going to shout out? You spoke to the voice of one of the most iconic characters in children's television.
Oh, you're talking about the Dora the Explorer interview. You know, some people need to go get some surprises when they visit our channel. I don't try to drop everything. You know, I talked to the Chucky creator, Don Mancini, and then talk to Dora the Explorer, 2 generations, the original voice of Dora and the new voice. And what's so great about it is the original voice of Dora is on the new show as the mom. So, you know, it's 2 generations merging.
Tidbit. Not that I'm like a Dora the Explorer stan, but I still think that's cool.
Yeah. So it tells you, you know, from talking to the creator Chucky to Dora the Explorer, there's something on Nerdtropolis for everybody. And that's
I love that. Yeah. If you go to Nerdtropolis's YouTube page, those videos are back to back. I love it. That's great.
That's how we roll here at Nerdtropolis. But thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.